Hello, welcome to a very special Saturday episode. This is probably, I think, only the second or third time that I've done this in the 2.5 years that I've been doing this podcast, but I apologize for no Friday episode, so I figured I would talk to you all today. I'm going to have a full preview for this evening's game against Arizona. Big game for the Penguins. Obviously, the Metropolitan Division is very tight. I'm going to get to that coming out after this drop. And we're also going to have a full deadline primer as the deadline is now 2 days away. Going to go into Josh Yohe's article as well and get some thoughts on, what he's been hearing and a whole lot more. So stick around for that right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to a very special Saturday episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Again, apologize for an episode on Friday. I'm not going to go full weekend without talking to you all. So I figured I would have an episode today before the game against Arizona. Going to have it up a few hours before so you all can go in and listen to it and all that jazz. So, and of course, we're going to have the trade deadline primer. So to start out, I am going to preview the game against the Coyotes. This is, you can ignore the record a little bit when you look at Arizona. Yes, I understand they are one of the worst teams in the league, but they have also been playing some really good hockey as of late. I mean, they just put up 6 on the Canadians. They just put up 5. They've scored 11 goals in their last 2 games. They almost beat Boston last Saturday. They beat Toronto on March 10th, 5-4. I mean, they have scored 5 or more goals in 3 of their last 4 games. Hell, actually, going way back, they have scored 5+ goals in 5 of their last 6 games. This is one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and actually, they have won 5 of their last 6. So you can ignore the record, and they've beaten some really good teams throughout that time. I mean, the Red Wings, I know they're not as good as they were earlier in the year, but they're ahead of them in the standings at least. Ottawa, they crushed. They beat Toronto. They almost beat Boston. I know they beat Montreal. They beat Colorado even on March 3rd. They almost beat Winnipeg. They beat Vegas on February 25th. They almost beat Los Angeles going back towards late February. This has been one of the hottest teams in the league for the last 2.5 to 3 weeks. So this is, I think, going to be a tougher game than some people, may anticipate today. I know their underlying numbers are not that good, but Clayton Keller is averaging a point per game this year. He's their top left winger, their best player. I also think, Nick Schmaltz, he's awesome. He's also on the top line. Alex Galchenyuk, former Penguin, Phil Kessel, former Penguin. They are on the second line with, I believe that's Riley Nash. I almost forgot that Riley Nash is in Arizona. So, Nick Ritchie on the third line. Louis Erickson's down there. Fisher on the fourth line. Lawson Krause. Defensively, Shane Gostisbehere, former Philadelphia Flyer. Anton Strawman. And then there are a bunch of defensemen here that I just have never heard of. Karel Vejmelka is probably going to start today. Scott Wedgwood is the backup, but I'm sure Vejmelka is going to start. He played pretty well in that first matchup. And, in that first game, when the Penguins did play Arizona, that was a really close game for going into the third period. Remember, the Penguins and Coyotes, they was tied 2-2. I think actually at times it was 2-1 Arizona. I think even they may have were up 3-2 in the third period, and then the Penguins just blitzed them right after that. Nick Schmaltz was really good in that game, had 2 of their goals. Clayton Keller had the other goal. Those are the 2 main players that the Penguins have to look out for today. Obviously, Keller, he's averaging a point per game, as I said. Schmaltz has been really good. I mean, the guy had a freaking 7-point game just a couple of weeks ago. And that is something that is very rare in the NHL. Hell, I don't even remember the last time Sidney Crosby did something like that. He's obviously one of the best players of all time. When a player, especially on a team like, the Yotes, gets 7 points in one game, you're doing something right. And I believe that was the game that came against, if I can find that here, I believe that was the game against Detroit on March 8th. No, it was not that one. It was the I'm gonna find it here. pretty soon. I know it was. Man. It was very, very recently. I don't know why that just totally abandoned me there, but you know what? Whatever. This is a team that's playing a lot better than their record is right now. And good for them. Their fans deserve something. I mean, at least good during this season. They're probably going to have to play at Arizona State next year, which is just hilarious and sad at the same time because for some reason, Gary Bettman loves the Coyotes, I guess. But, overall, if you look at expected goals and all their underlying numbers, 42% of those, 45% of the actual goals, minus 26 goal differential. They only have 44% of the shot attempts at even strength. That is also not good at all. Going up some of the more underlying numbers. Goals for per 62.44. They're also goals against right around 3. So definitely in the negative there. Expected goals, though, per 60, 1.98. So that's definitely not lining up to what we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks because they have just been way overdoing their expected goals. They've scored 5+ goals in 5 of their last 6 games. But normally this is a team that, struggles for offense. I will be curious to see how the Penguins start in this game. The Coyotes save percentage, overall save percentage is share 5v5, 9-10. So that's close to league average. They've gotten decent goaltending from that rookie, Joel, and he played well against the Penguins in that first game before they really got to him in the third period. So I'm curious to see, especially how the Penguins start. That's going to be, I think, the big indicator for me because they're coming off the stretch, right? 9 games in a row against most likely playoff teams. Columbus is obviously the one that's not going to get in. All the other ones are playoff teams. 6-2-1. Last 7 against total full-on playoff teams, 4-2-1. So, and the Penguins played really, really well during that stretch. Had 55% of the scoring chances, around 53% of the shot attempts for, around 54% of the high danger chances for, 54% of the expected goals. All very good numbers against some of the best teams in the league. The only team that really carried the play against them was Carolina. I thought the Penguins dominated a lot of the other teams that they played against. Now in this one, they finally get a team that's not that good, even though they're playing better. How do they start? What's the vibe check going to be for this game? I think that's going to be very important because obviously, it is hard, I think, to wake up for game 63 out of 82 on a Saturday afternoon/evening against one of the worst teams in the league. I know you're in a playoff race, but, they're coming off some really massive games. Are they going to really bring their 100% effort against a team like Arizona who, they're not going anywhere and there's probably going to be a little bit of a sell-off for them, by Monday. So, that's, I think, going to be really curious for me. Penguins just got to get shots on goal like they did against Arizona that last matchup. They got 6 past Vejmelka, so that's obviously very good. I thought they mainly dominated play in that game, but Arizona, they have some good team speed. Keller's a handful to get the puck off of. Schmaltz is also, again, very underrated. They have a couple pretty good core players that they can build around. It's just that around them there's really not that much. And they also, I think, need a number 1 defenseman at this point. I mean, Shane Gostisbehere is not going to be that guy. That's for sure. So definitely excited for this one. 5 p.m. start time, and then the Penguins will be off until after the deadline. They will play Buffalo and Columbus after the deadline. I believe the Columbus game is first at home. Then they go to Buffalo, and then they have the Rangers next Friday. So that's going to be pretty interesting there, to say the least. But again, curious to see how this game goes. The Arizona special teams are not good. The Penguins should have the edge there. As for who starts today, Mike Sullivan has not made an announcement. I'm sure that's going to come after I record this. Would not be surprised if it's Casey DeSmith. I'll say that. Bad team. I know Arizona's been scoring a lot though, but I thought DeSmith wasn't too bad in Nashville. I could see Sullivan maybe going back to him and saying, hey, let's see what you can do here in the game before the deadline. But also, wouldn't be surprised if they do go to Tristan. That's for sure. That wraps up this preview segment for the game against Arizona. Coming up in the next segment, and we're going to have a full deadline primer and go into what my prime targets are for the Pittsburgh Penguins Before we get to that, though, this is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to a resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. Almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They are marshmallowy. They are not just a protein bar. They are a treat. And they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're all so good. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. You can go to built.com right now and scroll down through the macros chart. You'll be blown away by everything that you see. Most of them contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. You can go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Okay, I was definitely right about, it was either that game against Detroit or Ottawa, because my mistake, of course, because I was on the Ottawa page when I was looking at the NHL. Yeah, Schmaltz had 7 points in that game, Saturday, March 5th, so 2 weeks ago. Obviously, again, he's a player that the Penguins will have to watch out for today, for sure. Anyways, getting into a full deadline primer, we are now officially 2 days away from the trade deadline, almost a full 48 hours. I know Ron Hextall has not made a move yet. He's probably, waiting to see what the prices go down. I mean, Brandon Hagel got traded yesterday. He was a player that I talked about on this podcast a lot for the last week or two. 2 first-round picks and 2 pretty good bottom 6 players went back to Chicago. I know I saw some weird takes on Twitter saying, well, why didn't the Penguins pay that price and all this other weird nonsense? And it's like, they're willing to give up 2 consecutive first-round picks and maybe like Zach Allison-Reese and Drew O'Connor, or Drew O'Connor and Radim Zohorna. I'm probably not giving up that for a player that's shooting 22% this year. What is this player going to look like? Obviously, that's Hagel, when he's not shooting 22% next year and he scores 10 to 12 goals. I mean, not going to be playing like this. That's for sure. So great haul by Chicago. I understand why Tampa Bay did it, obviously. I mean, they're all in. They're going for 3 in a row. And I'm sure Florida's probably going to go get Claude Giroux from Philadelphia. So, I'm not really upset that Ron passed on that. It is a seller's market right now. At the end of the day, they're asking for everything. So anyways, going back to the players that, I would also be very comfortable with for the Penguins acquiring. I've already said Connor Garland. He would make so much sense for Mike Sullivan's system. Great defensively, great offensively, has a really nice shot. If you can get him and swap a defenseman, probably not John Marino, I think that's probably great. Brock Besser, good in theory, but, are you going to pay his $7.5 million qualifying offer next year? Probably not. Right. There was a player that I have seen been getting a lot more interest lately, Tyler Bertuzzi of Detroit. And I understand that he is not vaccinated against COVID-19. Though I will say this, the Penguins probably will not have to worry about that come playoff time, unless they get to the final and they play the Calgary Flames. But, that would be a bridge that they would have to cross to when it comes to it. But at the end of the day, the Penguins in their division, they will not have to go through any Canadian teams. Of course, that's if they're in the Metro bracket, with how Washington's playing lately, who knows if the Penguins slide down a little bit. But, in the Atlantic, there's only Toronto. And Toronto, probably not going to get out of the first round. I don't think they're going to get to the conference final, that's for sure. I think Florida, Tampa Bay, and Boston's just lighting up the league as well. It's just going to be very tough, I think, for the Leafs to go on a massive playoff run here and really put it all together. So the Penguins, they wouldn't have to worry about that unless they win 3 rounds. So that's the only thing that I guess definitely gives me some pause. But, he makes a lot of sense for many reasons. His cap hit is really not that big, if I recall correctly. It's if I can find that here, I'm going to find that actually as I'm going to keep talking to you all. He brings that sandpaper element that I'm sure Brian Burke and Ron Hextall love, especially Burke, the truculence, as he likes to call him, great goal scorer, great playmaker. Seeing him next to Evgeny Malkin and maybe Denton Hein or something like that, or Jason Zucker whenever he comes back, that would just be a lot of sense. And he has term on his contract. So actually $4.7 million. So the Penguins, it's dollar in, dollar out. They would have to give to get and give up a player or two to get Bertuzzi. The Red Wings are supposedly open for business. They are not going to make the playoffs this year. I'm sure they're going to do a little bit of a sell-off by Monday's deadline. This is a player that I would definitely look at for the Penguins, regardless if he is vaccinated against COVID-19 or not. I know he's one of two players to not be vaccinated, but I could definitely see him running wild on the Penguins. If you look at Jay Fresh's stuff here on my phone, 93% wins above replacement. He's in the 90th percentile for even strength offense, 89th percentile for finishing ability. He has 2 years left on his contract. So this makes too much sense, at least for me. I don't know if the Penguins will be in on him. I'm sure Detroit is going to ask for a lot. Maybe it's similar to the Mantha for Verona thing we saw last year, but this is definitely a player that, I would love to get for Pittsburgh. Rickard Rakell, rental-wise, I would be down to get him, but I'm not giving up a first for him. I'm open to give up the first. Don't get me wrong. They should, and they should give it up. But for Rakell, a player that's just been really banged up, and he's not been the same this year compared, to a couple years ago, I'm hesitant to give up a lot, for that kind of player. Would he make sense? Yes, but I'm also not really sure, what the Ducks are going to want in return for him. I would maybe do a second and a prospect for him or something like that. I'm probably not going to do a first for him just because, decent at creating offense, but with how he's played this year, I'm just, I'm not really, open to it as some others are. But here's an option that I know has not been discussed a lot: Jordan Eberle of Seattle. I know that's a name that's, not a good name in Penguins land here, but he does make sense. Good goal scorer, has haunted the Penguins many times throughout the years. Right shot, so you can put him on Evgeny Malkin's right wing. That's his strong side. Put a Gensel, Crosby, Russ top line with a Zucker, Malkin, Eberle second line, and then you can shove some other wingers down. You can have Carter and Rodriguez on the third line with Heinen, Aston Reese, McGinn, and Bluger. Then, Kapanen is right there as well, or he gets sent out in a separate deal. That would make a lot of freaking sense. I'm not really sure if Seattle is open to moving Eberle. I know they're open for business, but I'm not really sure if they are open to moving him. He's in the 82nd percentile for wins above replacement, 92nd percentile for even strength offense. I know he makes $5.5 million for the next 3 years. So, maybe Seattle would retain half his salary. Maybe the Penguins are moving out some salary in another deal. They could make it work. And he's definitely a player that, I would like to go after. Dominic Kubalik, he's an RFA from Chicago. I'm sure the Blackhawks would ask a lot for him, but, he also makes some sense looking at Jay Fresh's stuff right here. 77th percentile for wins above replacement, 84th percentile for finishing ability, $3.7 million for the rest of this year. Kapanen makes 3.5. There's hopefully a match right there. Maybe you're giving up your first or something for, an RFA. And, who knows, maybe you can re-sign Kubalik. So he's also a player that I really like for the Penguins if they want to go out and get a scoring winger. I saw some talk, Paul Stastny from Winnipeg, if they want to be open for business there. I think he makes sense in a way. He only makes $3.8 million for the rest of this year. That's a rental option. I know the Penguins would prefer to get players with term. Alexander Radulov I saw was thrown out there by a couple people. Probably not. Make $6.3 million. I don't see a way how the Penguins are able to get him there. Gustav Nyquist, if the Penguins and Blue Jackets want to hook up for a trade, that also makes a lot of sense, to say the least. So there are no shortage of really good options out there for the Penguins, as I just named. But we're in the crunch time now. We're gonna have to see if Ron Hextall really wants to make a deal. I'm gonna have more on that, coming up in this next segment here as I go into Josh Yohe's article a little bit. But before I do that, it's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player prompts, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action that is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So yesterday, Josh Yohe did basically a new what he's hearing about the Penguins trade deadline plans. And apparently in the first thing that he said, he actually confirmed a couple people from the National Hockey Now's report. And I'll say right here, I apologize. Usually their track record is not great. Maybe I'll have to be a little more careful moving forward. But, when someone like Josh, is reporting the same thing, and I trust him a hell of a lot more for sure than I do some of the other people. I definitely think, it's more true for sure. If I can get this stupid hair off my thing on my back of my neck here. I definitely think that, okay, what I'm trying to say is, I trust Josh a lot more than I do these other guys. So the Penguins were in on him. It definitely makes sense to say the least. Though for actually being in on Sherratt, I don't think that makes sense. No, I think I'm just like jumbling my words here. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm tired or something like that. But being in on Sherratt to me makes no sense at all. The Penguins already have, basically 4 defensemen on the left side. That's the thing here. Dumoulin, Pettersson, Matheson, Friedman is a righty but plays on the left. They also already have 7 capable defensemen up there. P.O. Joseph is down Wilkes-Barre. He's NHL ready. Yusa Riegel is also down there. He's NHL ready too. You have 9 capable defensemen. Why are you going out and getting a 10th and Ben Sherratt or trying to when there's no reason to go out and acquire him? And, I did read in Josh's article that apparently the Penguins are open to acquiring another defenseman, but I just don't see that need. I mean, they have 7 very capable defensemen right now. And as I just said, 2 great ones down Wilkes-Barre that can play if needed. I don't see a need to waste assets for the sake of wasting assets so you can go out and get, truculence or toughness from, Robert Hagg, as Josh Yohe puts in his article. And, Hagg is pretty bad. To quote, one of my very good buddies from Penguins Twitter, Jason J_A155, Hagg is not a good player. I know he only makes $1.6 million against the cap, but, this is basically just, it's a repeat of Jim Rutherford bringing in Jack Johnson because he knows him and some stuff. And yes, Jason, I just copied your tweet onto this podcast. Just think it's like a copy paste, whatever. But his projected wins above replacement is 13%. Even strength offense, he's in the 43rd percentile. Even strength defense, 27th percentile. The only thing he's decently good at is finishing. But I mean, there's better Penguin defensemen, on the roster right now that are much better finishers. So I don't see a need to go out and get a player like that. If you want to go out and get a defenseman and target someone on Buffalo, go get Mark Pysyk. I mean, he actually is good both offensively and defensively. I don't see the need to go out and get someone like Robert Hagg. I mean, it makes no sense to me. And also, in a perfect world, I would not be going out and getting a defenseman overall. Josh did say, they are looking for a right wing who believe will be a nice fit with Evgeny Malkin. If I can also scroll down here a little bit here, he says they are also very much looking to make a deal. Ron Hextall is aware of the reputation that follows him, that he's often not willing to make a move. So it sounds like he wants to prove a lot of his doubters wrong. He wants to make a trade. He wants to, reward the team with, going all in just because of how good they've been this year. As Josh says, he's eager to make a trade and is perhaps willing to move more of the future away than many believed earlier in the year. So that's definitely, I think, means first round pick in this year's draft, couple their top prospects. We have to see what Ron wants to do. Josh really did not give any other trade targets in that article outside of Robert Hagg for a defenseman. But, I just outlined my deadline primer in the previous segment for you all. So, this is going to be a very interesting next couple of days for the Penguins. We'll see what Ron decides to do. Does he stand pat? Does he not like the prices? Or does he go all in for a forward and give up a whole lot to get one? Maybe it's one of the forwards that, I touched on, for this episode. So that'll do it for this one. On Monday, I believe I'm going to be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern time for the YouTube channel. It's going to be a regular podcast episode, though, so that it's going to go up right after I'm done being live. I'm just going to download the recordings and everything like that and just post it on Apple and Spotify. So if you all want to come and, and mark it on your calendars, 3 p.m. Eastern time, right when the deadline hits, I will be live, I believe, on the YouTube channel to, break down any move that the Penguins make. Also do, maybe a little bit of a recap episode for the game against Arizona. Just be there. You can have fun in the chat. We can all just, BS and stuff like that. So be the first time doing that at least. But, I'm definitely excited, to say the least there. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. And I will be back with you all on Monday for a fresh new set of episodes next week.